Hello everybody, this is the Hawaiian roll or bun recipe that at the last camp meeting everybody ate with the burgers, the mushroom burgers. So I just want to show everybody how it's made, because some people are having a little problem since I don't actually, when I gave out the recipe, didn't actually put the amount of water that was needed in the recipe. For this, because of the fact that whenever you're making breads or anything, it's really an art. You have to understand basically the humidity in your house, the barometric pressure, and from one kitchen to another, from even, certain things going on, around in the kitchen, just even if you're cooking, like, increasing the humidity in your kitchen, it's going to cause different amounts of water that needed to be added into it. And so it's more of a sight and more of a feel that you're going to actually be looking for. Right now I have the butter melting on the stove, and I've got the yeast. And I want to point out something as well. The bread machine instant yeast, the rapid rise, is so much quicker in regards to getting your yeast to go, because this one, the difference between this one and just the regular dry yeast, this one has more fresh active yeast in it. The other one has, it's still yeast, but it doesn't have as much of the live yeast. It has more of the casing that is shedded off from the yeast when they actually freeze dry this stuff. So best bet, use this. It works wonderful. And what I'm going to do is, I've already got the yeast put in there. I'm going to add the pineapple juice and some of the, you can add either sugar in the raw, you can do sucanat, you can do coconut sugar, whichever type of sugar you would prefer, just use it in the recipe 1 for 1. Okay, I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back for a moment. The butter is melted. The yeast is in with the coconut juice and pineapple juice. I actually get a mixture of coconut pineapple from the store. And I also, the butter I get is just the vegan, soy, earth balance, non-GMO stuff. That can, I don't think it's gonna focus right. But if you look at my recipe, mine is gonna actually be a double recipe, because I'm making this for the Sabbath, and I'm gonna be taking it over with brother and Nick and sis Fran, and I'm gonna be taking it over to have buns with them as well. So everything you see here is actually a doubled recipe. And when you add the egg replacer, I get that Energy E or egg replacer, and I put that into my flour and I mix it. And the reason for that is it will not, if you stick it in water, it could clump up, and you want it to be evenly distributed into the actual flour. So make sure that this is actually put into the actual flour. The top of it says it's 1 1/2 teaspoon of energy replacer plus 2 tablespoons of warm water. So what I'll do is I'll add the 2 tablespoons of warm water into my coconut, pineapple, sugar, and yeast, and I'll just put the egg replacer powder though in here. So that's just a helpful tip, so that it's all evenly incorporated and mixed into everything. And when I get that done, I will be right back. Okay, we're back. Now, when you're doing your salt, when you're doing just a single recipe, first start with a 1/2 cup of water and add your salt to it. If you're making, a double recipe, of course, it's going to be about a cup of water, which you're going to start with first. And you want to make sure that your salt is completely immersed into the actual water. You want it to dissolve it completely, get rid of every little gritty texture, because you don't want to accidentally have one spot in the bread that tastes really just plain old salt when someone bites into it. So that's just a good helpful tip as well. Get that salt completely mixed into at least a half cup of water before you start doing, you know, adding your wets and all that ingredients to it. So let's see if that is all dissolved. Got to make sure it's dissolved completely. All right, now that it's dissolved, what we're going to do is we are going to be taking the yeast and the butter and the salt and water, and we're going to be pouring it all into the flour. And I will be showing you what it's going to be looking like. But yes, the egg replacement powder has been incorporated into this as well. And I'm going to start adding first your oil. Add your oil first. Reason for that is you want to also incorporate that really nicely into it. You want to get all of that in there. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed, everyone. Let me see. You want to get it oily. You kind of like want to coat all of that stuff, the flour, in oil as much as you can. Then from that, then we are going to add our yeast mixture. Okay. And that is the coconut, yeast, and sugar. Give me one moment so I can scrape out this bowl. Okay, now I've added the coconut, pineapple, yeast, sugar mixture. Now I'm going to add that first bit of water that we got, that salt water. And I will be right back. Okay, as you can see, this is what I get when I do just that first salt water, and that's all the moisture that we've got so far. Now I'm going to have to add more because I know that this is not the texture I want. Now, let me add and start incorporating. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Still not there. This is what I mean. It's like it's an eye and hand thing that you're looking for. Now, I'm not going to add any more water yet. I'm just going to keep on going. Sorry about the camera quality. I'm trying to do this myself. You can see it's getting tough again. It's not the consistency I want, so I need now more water again. I'm adding probably a few tablespoons at a time. And then as I get closer to it, I'm going to add a little bit less and a little bit less, maybe teaspoons at a time. Looks almost like right now mashed potatoes. That's what it kind of looks like right now. But you can still see there's loose flour down there at the bottom that I need to get incorporated in. So we know it's not right. Sorry about that sizzling sound. I've got the pressure cooker going. My poundage weight is jiggling. Give me one moment. I'm going to try to incorporate this more. I'm going to need my hand that's using the camera, so I'll be right back. As you can see, we're back again, and we still have a lot of the crumb. See? A lot of it's still loose, dry, powdery. So I'm going to be adding a little bit more water again. This time just a very slight little bit, not much at all. And I will mix it and come back again. Okay, everybody, this is how it looks so far. And it's pulled away from my bowl, the sides of it and everything, but it's really stuck to my hands. Basically, you're wanting a very sticky thing. It's going to look like putty, basically, when you're working with it. That's what it is. It's a very sticky. I don't know how else to explain it. This is the bread that you're looking for. You want it to be very sticky. Almost, like I said, like putty is what you're looking for. And your hand is going to get very bad, but you're going to want to knead this, and you're going to knead it and knead it, and you're going to knead it until you can do what is called a window pane test. A window pane test is basically a test to show that you can look through it and the bread will be good. That means the gluten has stretched enough and is full enough that it is doing good. Now, this that you're seeing right here, how if I pull at it, look very closely. You see how it kind of breaks a little? It doesn't look smooth. It's cracking as I pull. That means that the gluten is not worked enough. That's going to give you a very crumbly, ugly loaf. You see that? You don't want that when you pull. You want it to pull and you want it to be smooth and no cracks. So I'm going to work this for maybe about 5 minutes, maybe 10, depending upon it and how it is. And I'll kind of come back to you halfway through my kneading and show you the results and show you what we don't want and what we do want. Okay? All right, I'll be right back. Okay, now the window pane test I'm talking about, with a dough this sticky, just pull off a piece like that and kind of get your hand into almost like a ball. Kind of roll it into a ball a little. Now, because it's so sticky, you can kind of do it with one hand. You're going, see how it's kind of, even though it's so sticky, it still cracks. We don't want that. When we're pulling our hands apart, if we get to like, see how it cracks? You want it to be to where it really, I'll show it to you in a little while, basically to where it does not crack when we're doing this. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, you can see this is how I'm kneading it now. And I have one of these, just a paint scraper. You can get, basically a bench scraper or anything. I just got this because it was cheap. All you have to do is, if it's getting stuck, slide it under, pick it up, keep kneading it, incorporate it back in. And I said, this is a very, very sticky dough. Very sticky. It's supposed to be like this. It's not a regular dough recipe. You can see we're almost to the point that I like it. The reason I scrape a little bit on the bottom is because I need that dough that's on the bottom sticking to the table. It's gluten to also be working and pulling to get those gluten fibers elasticy in order to keep that bread good and soft and so it doesn't crumble on you. That's the whole point. And I said, bread, you can't just have set measurements. There is no set measurement when you're making good quality dough for bread. There's none. You have to look, you have to feel, you have to understand what you're working with. Now there is a thing as too much kneading as well, and you don't want to over knead your dough either, because then it makes it too dense and too hard and it won't rise good. So as I said earlier, if we look at it, we're almost there, because when we look at the bread, you see how it's not as cracking as it was anymore when I'm pulling apart? It's now more stretching than cracking. So maybe about another minute or two, and then that should be it. Sorry, my table's hitting the wall in the house. You know, it may be tempting to add more flour, but you don't want to do that. You want this to be a very sticky dough bread recipe. Very sticky. Because as you are kneading it, the bread dough is eventually going to start drying out little by little, even as it's setting out. And so you don't want a bread, you want buns. Soft, moist, delicious buns. Big difference. You notice my hands are getting a little drier. Not as much is sticking to them. Everything is doing good. Now, watch. When I pick this bread up, and I'm going to get it really quick and I'll show y'all. And I grab this bread and I pull it apart. It's not breaking anymore. It's stretching. And you can see those gluten fibers not breaking, but stretching. That's the texture you want. Now, the window pane test that you're looking for, take it, roll a little bit into a ball, and you're going to want to be able to press this out and kind of put it up, and you're going to want to be able to kind of see how you can almost see my finger through the back of that. That's how you know when you can pull this out almost paper thin right there. That's the type of texture you want. Now, all you do is you're going to grease up your bowl that it's going to rise in. You're going to grease up the bowl, set it in there, put some saran wrap over it, and then you're going to put it in the oven, boil some hot water on the stove, and put the pan of hot boiling water underneath this. And I'll show that to you in just a minute. Okay, first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to apologize. That is still shimmering and shaking for my canning. But as you can see, you put boiling water in a pot, steam it up, you open up your oven, and you put it basically right below your bread. That's all you do. You just put it right below there. So it's going to take, oh, sorry about that. You're gonna put it off to the side. You put the bread to one side, and it steams it, keeps it nice and hot for the time frame. So that's it. And now we're gonna let it double in size. I'll be back. Okay, so I've pulled out the dough just for right now, just to show you about rising. The way we know when it's risen is we're gonna put our fingers in, we're gonna put it up to the second knuckle. And we're gonna put our fingers in. Now, the holes you're gonna see, we're gonna decide if it stays open, then that means that it's risen as far as it needs to go. If they close up really, close up, then that means that it has not risen all the way. So we put our finger in, come out. Look at that. Isn't that weird? Since it's a doughy recipe, look at that. How they closed up right there in the middle. Do that again really quickly for you. See how they closed up really quickly. That means it's not done. That means this needs to go back in there and it needs to continue rising. Just wanted to let y'all know that. All right. Now, as you can see, this dough has risen. Now, watch what I do. Put my fingers in, and you can see the little openings right there. They didn't close up like they did last time, did they? No. You can see it very definite. Even though it's a very sticky dough, you can see a very definite shape. Now, I'm going to take this dough and grab it all off. And take this and see how it's coming out nice and clean. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to flour. Now, we're not going to incorporate this flour. This flour doesn't incorporate into any of it, because if you do, then you're going to miss that stickiness. This is just for the outside of it. Now, this is very important. This is why I love this thing. Flop that over and cut your dough. Each section, since I'm doing a double batch, I know each one of these can bring out. Watch. See how smooth that is? When we pull it, very nice and smooth. Cut it again. Make another ball. See, it's not even really sticky. It's not sticking to my hands anymore like the way it was at the beginning. Even with all that humidity inside the oven. Form another ball. Move this one to the side. Cut it again. Now, this is about the size you're going to want when you're making the actual burgers, buns. You're going to want half of this when you're making the actual rolls. Now, if you saw what I was doing, basically what I'm doing is I'm stretching it out and tucking it in under itself. See how my hands are going under? Tucking it under, tucking it under, tucking it under. That way I get a good, nice stretch on the top. Then you come around and you kind of pinch the bottom. Pinch it, pinch it, pinch it, pinch it. Now, this is where you're going to take your flour. And you're going to put a nice, slight covering of flour on the outside. That's it. You do not need any more into there. Then you're going to take your pan your baking pan. I've only got this one, so I'm going to use this. And you just slide it on there, and you let it rise for another 30 minutes, and then you stick it in the oven. I mean, even at this point, if you wanted to, instead of putting the dusting of flour on it, you can add a little bit of water onto the top of this after you put the dusting of flour, and then you can put sesame seeds, black sesame seeds, white sesame seeds, and it'll just look like a bun. But since these are, Hawaiian buns, I don't want the sesame on them. But that's it. It's that simple, everyone. Now, since they're big and they've increased inside, I'm going to now preheat the oven to 350, and I'm going to bake these until maybe 20 minutes. Basically what I do is I take it out and I kind of knock a thump on the top of them, and if they sound hollow, then they're done. So hope and pray you're blessed with this. I'll come back and show you the finished results. As you can see, this is the finished buns, and once they cool off, all you need to do is basically take them and cut them and then use them. God bless everybody.